Hello, creatives. Welcome back to All Things Joy. In case you are new here, I'm Joy Harrisburg, author, creator, producer, and lover of all things creative. So I'm excited because last week we wrapped up my 4-part series, How to Write a Children's Book. And so this week I'm just going to do a really quick Q&A of some of the questions that I've received from my followers on social media and some on YouTube. So I am excited. Let's jump in. Okay, so let's get into these questions. Question 1. How do you come up with ideas for a children's book that will resonate with young readers? So when I first started out, I actually wrote stories that I needed to hear or that my inner child needed to hear. So with Zoe the Great, the message was kind of about bullying because I was bullied as a child. And I do know that that is something that a lot of kids still deal with, is bullying. As I kind of evolved as an author, I really started to research the world around me. I would observe children. I would listen to their conversations and see what types of things they were talking about. And then that would help me to determine what I needed to write so they could see themselves in my book. So I would encourage you, honestly, just to do your research on the children around you, to be observant of what they're listening to, what they're watching, what they're doing. And then from there, kind of think about a story that you can write that will allow them to really relate to the characters and the story of your book. Question 2. How do you develop relatable characters for children, especially diverse or underrepresented characters? So most of my characters in my books are African American. So for me to develop an African American character is easy because I'm African American. But if you're thinking about writing a book that has different cultures and different ethnicities, then you already know what I'm going to say. You have to do your research because there's so many different things that you need to know. If you're going to write a book about a different culture, you need to become very knowledgeable in the culture that you're writing about. And you need to understand what the kids in that cultural background want to see, and not necessarily what they want to see, but what do they need to see. So I say it all the time, but it's so important. You have to do your research. Go to the bookstore, go to your library. You can even Google it and just really do your due diligence to make sure that what you're writing is something that they can relate to. Question number 3. How do you approach the pacing and structure of a children's book to maintain a child's attention? This is something that I've really been struggling with. Well, children's books are fast paced. So when it comes to pacing, of course you want to build your storyline, but you kind of want to get to the point quickly. You don't want to draw it out, depending on what age you're writing for. So that's the first thing I would say is I would need to know what the age group is that you're writing for. I write most of my books for children who are aged 4 to 8. So with those books, you kind of want to get to the point and grab their attention early on. So you kind of want to rely on not just the words of your story, but the illustrations. So if it is a longer story, you need to make sure that your illustrations will keep their attention. If it's a shorter story, you need to make your words so bold and so dynamic and so engaging that they can't wait to turn the page. And there are several books that I can think of. But if you think about Dr. Seuss, Green Eggs and Ham, like just some of his classic stories, they're simple, but it grabs your attention within maybe the first couple of sentences. So I would think that would be the best thing for you to do, is just make sure that you kind of get to the point and that your book is visually appealing and that they can see themselves in those characters. They can relate to the characters. Maybe make one of your characters have a funny expression, or do something with the background that they can look at it and say, oh, wow, look at that, or oh, wow, look at this. So make it visually appealing, but also be concise and to the point. All right, question number 4. What role do illustrations play in storytelling, and how do you collaborate with illustrators? Honestly, illustrations, they are crucial when it comes to children's books. They play a huge role because, like I said in part 4, sometimes the illustrations can convey the message that words alone cannot do. So you really want to collaborate with your illustrator to make sure that you are illustrating those words so beautifully that it's hard to not look at them. Like, you want them to get stuck on a page because they're literally just looking at the illustration and they're relating to it, and they're looking at the character, and the character is resonating with them, and now they're rereading the words and the words are resonating with them. So illustrations, they are literally, in my opinion, they're the heartbeat of your story when you're dealing with children's books. Because I know when I was a kindergarten teacher, at the beginning of the school year, the kids could not read yet, some of them. And so we would take picture walks through books. So I would give them a book, and they would just look at the pictures, and they would have to tell me what they thought was going on in the story. And for most of them, they were able to look at those illustrations and figure out what's going on. They're like, oh, well, he looks sad, or, oh, it looks like they're talking about them, or, oh, it looks like this is bright, they're having a good time. So you want your illustrations to be able to tell the story. So you want to collaborate with your illustrator to make sure that they are representing your words well. All right, question number 5. So this actually came from someone on Instagram who had replied to my story, and they said, I love how you're marketing your book. What advice do you have for marketing a children's book and getting it into the hands of readers? So for me, I definitely rely on social media a lot. I do a lot of posting on social media. I do social media ads, and I try to come up with creative content, because of course you can just post your book and post your meaning for, or your reason for writing the book. But once you get beyond that, there has to be something more. So I kind of look at what's trending in social media, and I try to cater my content to match that. So that's one thing that you can do. And like I said, you can run an ad on your post. Boosted ads, they really do help. I've seen a difference with posts that are not boosted versus posts that are boosted. So if you have content that you feel like is strong and you really want to get it out there, I would definitely recommend using Instagram or Facebook ads. Word of mouth. With my first book, Zoe the Great, word of mouth was imperative. Like, I posted it on Facebook and I had so many people sharing it. So you have to think about it. When someone shares your post, now everyone on their friend list is seeing their post. And if someone from their friend list sees that post and then they share it, now everyone in their friend list, and so it just goes on and on and on and on. So word of mouth can be so crucial when it comes to your children's book. So you want to try to get the word out there. You can create like a launch team to help you market your book. Say, hey, I have a new book coming out. I would love if you would join my launch team. You can give them an advance copy. And the only thing that you maybe require them to do is to just share your book on their social media. You would be surprised how effective that can be. It seems like a simple tactic, but it's so effective because you're getting all these new and fresh eyes on your story. Another thing you can do is partner with your local bookstore. Book signings, author visits, like all of those things are things that get you out there in front of the public. Any opportunity that you can set up for yourself to talk about your book is a marketing tactic. So utilize your resources, utilize your community, and utilize social media and really get the message and get the word of your book out there. All right, question number 6. Can you share any tips on how to publish a children's book through self-publishing platforms like Amazon KDP? If you take the time to read their manuals and to read the how-tos on how to upload your manuscript, how to format your manuscript, how to use the right categories and the right keywords, if you take the time to read all of the material, it's really just like a step-by-step process. It can be time-consuming if you don't know how to do it, but you can learn, and anything worth having is worth working for. So I would say take the time to read those guides when it comes to Amazon KDP, because they're really specific when it comes to the margins and different things on how to format your manuscript. So I would actually read that first before you start designing your book, because if you can get the margins set first, then you'll build your illustrations and the words and the formatting, and all of that will just fall around it. So look at the specific guidelines. Determine what size you want your book to be. Do you want it to be a square 8x8? Do you want it to be 8x10? Just decide what size you want your book to be. Go into their guidelines and see what the formatting needs to be. And then whatever software you use to put your book together, make sure you have those specific guidelines in there. Another thing you want to do when it comes to KDP is make sure you put your book in the right category. So if you just list that you have a children's book, think about this, and you're not specific on what type of book it is, you're going to be competing with every single self-published author and traditionally published author that has their product on Amazon. So you want to make sure you put your book in the right category. If your book is about animals, like let's say it's about a bird, you want to put children's books and you want to choose the bird category, because you want to narrow the category that your book is in, because it gives you a fair chance of becoming an Amazon bestseller, because you have to sell so many copies in that category. So if you're in a larger category and you're competing with bigger name books, and every children's book author, it's going to be harder to reach that Amazon bestseller list. So I would do your research on categories and make sure that you set your book up to be in the most effective and efficient category. All right, last question. How do you handle feedback and revisions when creating your children's book? So I feel like I handle criticism and feedback well if it's constructive. So don't just tell me you don't like it, but then in turn not provide a reason as to why you don't like it, or maybe give me some type of advice on what I can do better. So I like constructive criticism. So if you say, I don't like this picture, and that's all you say, for me, that's not constructive. But if you say, I don't like how the wings are pointed upward in this picture, it doesn't really look natural. Maybe if you take the wings and point them more out and maybe add brighter colors. Like if you give me some constructive feedback and advice, I'll receive it no problem. Because at the end of the day, I want my story to be the best that it can possibly be, because I want the children to really love it and I want it to resonate with them. So I feel like when it comes to feedback and criticism, you're not going to get away from that if you're writing a children's story. You're already going to be hard on yourself because you want your product to do well. And if you get fresh eyes on it and you ask someone for their opinion, be prepared to receive their opinion. Be prepared to know that criticism can only refine your story even more. Criticism is a part of the game, and it can only make you better if it's constructive. Okay, so that's all the questions that I have. I hope this was useful for you. I want to say that I appreciate everyone who's dived into this series with me, How to Write a Children's Book. I hope that I dropped some gems that will spark something in you to go ahead and put your story out there. I have an ebook called How to Write a Children's Book, and I am dropping some major gems in there. I'm giving information on self-publishing platforms, on marketing, on illustrations. Click the link in the description box to get your copy, How to Write a Children's Book. Get that knowledge, and most importantly, get your story out there. Somewhere, someone is waiting to hear your story. So please, please tell it. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey. It's been my pleasure. Take care. Peace.